Hello, I am Kim Wardlow and your host for Navigating Life with Vision Loss. We're continuing our series on NLVL on sports and all things sports. And I just want to emphasize again that we want everyone to enjoy the program and listen, and it's for all levels. So this program is about extreme sports, and I know not everybody chooses to do extreme sports, but maybe you've thought about it, maybe you do it, so this definitely is for you. But even if not, even if you're just starting to get into sports again, maybe you just like to cheer other people on who are doing the sports, I think that you'll still enjoy this episode. So welcome to this episode. We're going to focus on 3 areas today: rock climbing, water adventures, and mountaineering. And our guest today is Shawn Cheshire, and she's just an amazing athlete. She was the first blind female athlete to compete in the biathlon and the U.S. Paralympic Nordic team. She's won many medals and championships in cycling, rowing, and just recently she set a new record for hiking the Wonderland Trail. And so she's always looking for a new adventure. So Shawn, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's very nice to meet you.
You too. I know you've been on our other shows and talked
Yes.
to Penn and some of our other hosts. So it's good. It's good to have you on NLVL as well. Did you want to add anything, tell anything else about yourself to folks, just as an introduction?
Yeah, sure. I'm 50 years old. I lost my vision when I was 36 from a traumatic brain injury. And so I have cortical blindness, and I have no vision at all. And it was this injury that kind of pushed me into the world of sports, starting with running, got into biathlon, which I really, really loved, cross-country skiing and rifle shooting, and then kind of transitioned over into tandem racing with Team USA for about 7 years. And then COVID hit, and I kind of needed a change, and I kind of shifted into coming up with like adventure ideas of all the things that I've heard sighted people say through the course of my life as a blind person of what we can and can't do. And just wanted to start breaking social barriers of how society sees us as blind athletes and individuals, and to help encourage people to not limit. We should not limit each other. And what I've discovered in the process of challenging myself is that I benefit the most from this from an emotional, mental perspective, because it really does help me deal with the sadness that comes with a loss like this. Mm-hmm. So that's who I am today.
Yeah, and I will just note, as you said, you've done the tandem cycling, but you've also challenged yourself. You've crossed the Grand Canyon. You've done single cycling. So you have done things on your own as well as with guides and tandem. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The riding the bikes across the country, that I was following sound, so I had guides, but I wasn't on a tandem. As a cyclist with Team USA, I heard for years, blind people don't ride single bikes, we ride tandems. And I got curious because I thought, well, if anyone's going to decide whether or not blind people can ride single bikes or not, it should be the blind and visually impaired people,
right?
Not sighted people, right?
Right.
So,
and then you can choose. Then you could choose what you wanted to do, or some of both.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Oh.
Yeah, I feel like some of the things that I've done have also been sparked by hearing sighted individuals saying blind people can't do, and then whatever it is. So that's a big motivator for me as well.
Definitely. Well, what do you think people get wrong when we're talking about extreme sports? Like the perceptions about extreme sports, and that people have misconceptions about them.
Well, I think that the first misconception that I encounter is that most of the time, like, people's beliefs are limited based off of their own self beliefs, right?
Right.
Or their own fears. And so if they've got this mentality of what they feel like they can or can't do, or if there's someone that pushes themselves outside of their comfort zone, if they don't do that, then they tend to have more limiting beliefs. And so then that's what they project when they're communicating to other people about, you know, extreme adventures. It's usually comes from themselves if they're limited. I think that the other part of it is, you know, we think as from a societal perspective that disabilities are limiting. And like, I couldn't go out and be a race car driver, though. If I could figure out how to do that, I probably would. Two-way radio, I don't know. But there are certain things, like as a blind individual, that I'm not doing on a daily basis because I can't see. But I don't know if I see that as I'm limited. It just, I have to do things differently. So to me, it's all about the mentality of how you approach things. And it usually begins with how you look at yourself and your own life. And that's usually what people project when they communicate, unfortunately. Not everybody loves to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, sometimes that's a hard choice to choose to challenge yourself knowing that you're going to be a little bit or maybe a lot uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I also think that there's this misconception that, you know, having a disability and then doing something that could be, you know, dangerous, we're usually more careful than someone who's sighted. So we have a more thorough thought process into safety and what that looks like. Going into something than sometimes what a sighted person would do. So I feel like from that perspective, you know, for me, I can only speak for myself. Right. I'm more cautious, I think. Yeah.
Well, and I think just generally, not only for a person who's blind, but just generally that the term extreme sports, that people think, oh, that's just by nature, you know, very dangerous and very risky. And certainly it could be, but I think that's also how you prepare and the precautions you take. And, you know, like of you're course. Doing this thoughtfully. 100%. You're just not recklessly going out.
No, and it really also goes back to an individual's perception on a daily basis of, you know, safety, right? You can just drive to work and get hit by a car, another car, and be killed. Or like you can walk across the street, you could be sighted. Like anything can happen at any time. And yes, you know, as a blind person doing some of the things that I'm doing, I'm taking additional risks. And for me personally, I always have the mentality of I kind of weigh the benefit versus the harm. So if the harm is bigger than the benefit, then I usually don't do it. But if the benefit's going to be greater than the harm, then I'm in.
Right. Well, that makes sense. It makes sense to me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you surprised yourself that you did something that you were challenging yourself and you weren't sure you would be able to do?
I mean, the first thing that surprised me was after this injury is I was so lost that I just wanted to die. So I think that, you know, the first time I really surprised myself was choosing to live. But then when I made that choice to live, I made the decision that I was going to live the biggest, fullest life I could potentially do as a blind person ever. And then that just kind of transitioned in. So if we're talking about adventures, I really will have to say it was when I did the double crossing of the Grand Canyon in 2018. And I had 3 sighted guides and I had a concussion and I couldn't race on the tandem that year. And I just needed something to do. And it's the first time I really ever hiked. And we did, I became the first blind woman to do the double crossing of the Grand Canyon. And I have never pushed myself. It took us 24 hours and I've never pushed myself that long and that hard. And when I came out of the Grand Canyon from that adventure, I think what really blew me away was the amount of confidence that came from that. And then that made me curious because it got me thinking, okay, what can I do
Mm-hmm.
next? So, and it really shocked me that I could pull that off, to be honest. Yeah.
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 But
I created a monster.
yeah, well, yeah,
Really what
because it's like,
happened.
oh, well, if I could do this, well, maybe
Yeah,
that's not so far off.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think is your biggest mental hurdle, and has that changed over time as you've done more and more adventures?
Well, I feel like the mental hurdle that I have is just like everybody else, and that's fear.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I th- I think not that I think my experience with fear is that there's never an absence of fear. It's learning how to do things and still be scared. Is has been like this really valuable lesson for me, and which kind of translate from extreme adventures into all parts of my life. And so that has been a big lesson for me is fear. That if you can learn how to do things and be scared, right? It goes to the being uncomfortable. Man, you can do anything. You could do anything, really.
Yeah, I agree. If you're trying to wait until you have no fear or no uncertainty, you're never, whether it's a sport or something else in your life, you're never going to do it because
Right.
there's always
Right.
some of that you have to
Yeah.
just push through.
Yeah. I watch people every day be stuck in their life because of fear. That fear of change, the fear of being uncomfortable, whatever it is. Fear just really is very powerful. Yeah.
Is there anything particular that you found, and obviously it can vary for each person, but for you that helps you push through fear when you're experiencing that?
Um, well, one of the things so I think it's how I look at what I'm doing, right? It's so for if I use the Wonderland Trail as an example, I didn't know that I could do that.
Hmm.
And the thought of going out and doing that, 93 miles over 24,000 feet of elevation gain, and trying to do it in 3 days or less, and it's super technical, unknown elements. If I thought about it, I would be intimidated and overwhelmed thinking like I'm never going to be able to pull that off, right?
Hmm.
So I have to actually break it down and think about it that everything I've done historically, I've learned through the process, through the journey of whatever adventure, bike riding, hiking, mountain climbing, whatever it's been, every step has been, this experience for me. And that's kind of how I have I get to learn more about myself and I learn lots of things is through the process. It isn't just about trying to get to that finish,
Hmm.
right? To the 3 day finish, finishing that 93 miles. And so if I don't think of it as a whole, then and just break it down as I'm about to go on a journey. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know if I can actually do it, but I'm going to give it my best and I'm going to enjoy and be present for every step of the process. It kind of, to me, it takes some of that intensity out of that fear of like, oh my God, what did I just get myself into?
Right.
I'm like, I'm never going to be able to pull this off. Right. And so I just have to just break it down and just remind myself it's always about the journey. It's not really about the finish. And if I get there, whether it's 3 days, 4 days, or I don't finish, I'm always going to have this part of the journey that I'm learning something and having an experience in with it.
Yeah, and those smaller successes that you have along the way.
Yeah, 100. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And being out in these places that are just some of the most beautiful places in nature. It's, less touched by humans, very different than the Grand Canyon, that's for sure.
Yes, not a major tourist
Yes.
destination.
No, no, not, no, it's not. Yeah, it's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Well, let's transition a little bit to our three main areas that we're going to cover. And maybe you can just, give a little bit of an overview and, of these, but we'll start with rock climbing and just rock climbing as a blind person or person with low vision, what to
Mm-hmm.
expect, what's a good first step, accessibility. Um, just kind of starting out for somebody who's interested in pursuing rock climbing.
Well, my experience with within the rock climbing community is they are really cool, friendly individuals that do rock climbing, and and I think this kind of goes for um, no matter what it is that you want to do. Sometimes we have to teach people how to work with us.
Mm-hmm.
So we want their skill for them to teach us how to do the thing, but then we also sometimes have to, because not everybody's going to live in an area where they have experienced individuals that know how to work with the blind or visually impaired, like
Right.
in rock climbing, and but you can teach them, and because they're the expert at that, and then when you teach them of what it is you need as someone who can't see, you start developing trust and you start developing this aspect of team, and it really becomes this really rewarding experience. I have I the only time I've ever I started in a gym and just taught people how to work with me, and it wasn't until we went outside to go rock climbing we started using like two-way radios, just little two-way radios in the ear, just so that way if it was windy or it was harder to hear the higher you go,
Mm-hmm.
the person who's communicating and watching how you're climbing and giving you suggestions where to reach your hands on the rock to looking for places to catch your feet or your fingers, that's clear communication. But I think that process, like everything else that you do, is building trust. Because the more you trust that person's not getting distracted and checking their text messages on their phone,
Yeah.
but they're watching you.
Right. Right.
You build trust. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so I think going to a local gym is a good place to start. I don't know if there's any online um, like groups that help connect people in different areas, but people can always reach out to me, and I can be happy to help figure out where they live and how to connect them with people to help them learn if they want to get involved in that.
Are there specific adaptations that you have as a blind person to be able to rock climb?
No,
No.
just
Yeah.
two-way radio.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when just clear communication is what's needed, and then education. So you're going to teach someone. I think going into it is you don't need to know how to rock climb, but you just need to know what you need as someone who can't see,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to clearly communicate that, and then you guys will figure it out together. I'm confident of that. But there are no special, you use the same shoes, it's the same
Yeah.
technique, they teach you the safeties. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, let's move on to water adventures.
Oh,
And there's
God.
obviously lots of different kinds of water adventures.
Oh, yes. It's so funny, right? I do all these brave things, except since I lost my vision, I'm terrified of water. It's so funny. Yeah, I pride myself in being able to orient myself, um, which helps reduce the sense of fear. But in water, it is so hard to orient yourself
Right.
because you just hard to know where you are in the world when you're in water because of how it moves. Yeah, and the sound changes,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's like my least favorite. Yeah.
Have what experiences have you had in your water adventures?
Um, I mean, I've been on a sailboat. I've paddle boarded.
Mm-hmm.
I've knee boarded. Um, I learned how to swim in the ocean with the waves, like body surf.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done stuff like that. But that I've really limited myself in the water. I really need to be brave and face the water, but we'll get to
So
that.
maybe that'll be
Yeah.
an adventure, a challenge for next summer.
Yeah. I mean, the experiences I've had, like with paddleboarding, the person who was out with me just stays close enough that I can hear what they're saying. Um, and if they're talking, then I know how to follow their voice.
Mm-hmm.
And kneeboarding, that was totally on my own. There was no way to get a two-way radio to stay in my ear during that, especially if you hit the water, then, it's destroyed or
Mm-hmm.
gone. And it was really just someone teaching you what to do. And then it's really just about experience. You go out and you experience the feelings of what they're teaching you. And then little by little, they pick up the speed. And it's like with everything else, you just have to become more familiar with how something feels when you're trying to learn something new. But yeah, but I mean, I can't think of any from my experiences, any special adaptations that anyone's had to make to work with me on
Mm-hmm.
anything in the water, other than communicating, like talking loud.
Right. And to help you
Yeah.
be able to orient yourself where you're at.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And I figured if I can hear the person that I'm with, then that's my safety,
Right.
because they'll know where they are
Yes.
because they can see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, you definitely would want that to have that safety factor, and they could see
Yes.
if you were floating off in a bad
Yes,
direction or
that is
something like
definitely a
that.
fear of mine. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, the third adventure area we have is mountaineering, and do you have a definition that you would use for mountaineering of what that includes?
Um, well, I mean, people like my friend Lonnie Bedwell, who's blind, he's trying to complete the 7 summits and the 2 poles, and he is a mountaineer. I've been to Everest,
Mm-hmm.
and that was my first experience. And again, it really it was communication. I wasn't tethered to anyone. I learned all the techniques before I went. I had 2 guides, 2 Sherpas, so it was all about the communication. And and when I was learning the techniques, I learned them before I went to Everest, but then we practiced when we got to base camp before things got more stressful through the ice fall,
Mm-hmm.
the Kumbu ice fall. So again, it was communication, and it was me learning to do the same things that everybody that's sighted is doing. But I'm just surrounded by 4 different individuals that are watching me and then giving me verbal feedback. But there was no tether, no, nothing, nothing special other than when I'm hiking, I have a blind bib on the back of my pack, just so, climbers coming up behind at least have that, that sign to let them
Mm-hmm.
know. Yeah. But for just from my limited experience, that has been, it. Hiking's a little bit different to me than mountaineering, just from the perspective of, I'm labeled with a blind bib. I use 2 hiking poles, so from the front you can't tell that I'm blind.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm relying on my guides to announce to runners or bikers, "Hey, I've got a blind hiker behind me," to help alert everybody else that's around me that I can't
You're not
see.
going to see them.
And
Yeah.
no, right. And, and what's interesting is that there's in all of the things that I've done, no matter what it has been, there's always this disconnect with sighted individuals that my people can say, "Hey, I have a blind cyclist, I have a blind hiker, I have a blind climber," to just alert the people that are crossing paths with us. And it just never registers, right? It just never, and so then if something happens and they body check me and I don't
Right.
move, they'll be like, what the hell? And I'm like, I'm blind. They
They
just
just
told you
told you
I'm
I
blind.
can't see you.
And they're like, oh, I didn't realize that they literally meant you were literally blind. Like we've had this response like
Oh,
so
that's
many
so
times,
unusual.
like, oh,
Like,
we
what
didn't,
did they think that meant?
that they were making fun of me. It just didn't
Oh,
register in their brain. Cause I think that if I'm, giving people the benefit of the doubt, I think it's the fact that when I'm out climbing a mountain, like I live in Flagstaff, Arizona, and we go out and we go up to climb Humphreys, and we're coming up and people are coming down, and my guides are just letting them know we're coming through, let us through
hmm,
and not to bump into me. And it just never dawns on them that a blind person's going to be out there climbing a mountain. So
right.
like
So
they
they
just have
couldn't
this
really
like
mean that they had an actual person
right,
could not see them.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's always interesting to have that experience. And I have found that in all of the things, the people that I'm doing the things with are my most important like you're asking if there's special equipment, special accommodations. It's really the people that are with me, because they're the ones that can see, and they're the ones that are keeping me on track, keeping me on course, keeping other people from bumping into me or knocking me over, and making sure that I don't get lost or I drowned or fall or whatever. So I feel like the most special equipment, if you want to call them that, are my people that are out there with me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and just those relationships would be so key, as you've kind of mentioned throughout this whole
Hmm.
episode of being able to build that trust with the folks that are
Hmm.
with you.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just touch on some barriers. We've talked about a few, fear,
Okay.
cost, time. I'm new. Like, uh, are there barriers that you've had or that you've seen with other athletes that you've worked with, and how you can overcome some of those?
You mean barriers to access to things, or just
Yeah,
doing the thing, or all of
well,
it?
kind of all of it. Like barriers, maybe to be able to do things, and we've talked a little, bit about like overcoming fear and those types of things. But maybe barriers to access too. If
Hmm.
other individuals like, oh no, we could not let a blind person, even yes, I know you're a guide, but even with you, well, that would just be too
Hmm.
dangerous. We don't want to have that liability or something like that.
Right. Right. Well, that's why I stopped asking. I don't ask for permission anymore. I just, what I do is I just like find the right team, and then we do it. We say, hey, we're about to do this. It was like when I did the solo crossing of the Grand Canyon last year, or in 2024, and the park service is like, absolutely not. Their recommendation is, if someone's going to do rim to rim, is you do it in like 2 to 3 days. It's just, they're trying to do a single push like that, plus being blind and me trying to do it without a sighted guide. They're like, God, no. So it's more of I put my team together and we let them know we're going to be, leaving the North Rim on the morning of this day. And she's being followed by individuals that'll watch for her safety, but make no contact. And we have all the things, right? We have, we're seasoned. We just communicate that we've done this before.
Hmm.
We know about food, water, electrolytes, safety, first aid, all the things, communication, and then we just do it. We don't really ask for permission. We just we go and we do it, and we just make sure that when we go to do it, that we've covered all of the bases of all the things, so that way it's successful and nobody gets hurt. Um, I think that my experience is, and I'm kind of curious if how spot on I am with this, is that I would venture to guess that if you asked as a whole from the blind and visually impaired community, I feel like the biggest hurdle to access is finding people to do stuff with.
Mm.
So, because if it's hard to find someone to do something with, then we can't get out and do it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then right. And there, you would be surprised by how many people, I've run into that they don't want the responsibility of doing something with us. Like, because if we got hurt, then they'll feel bad or feel guilty or whatever it is. And so they won't even try. And it's hard to find people to do things with, either from being brave and doing it with us or having the time. I think when it comes to financial, which I'm hoping as the word gets out, I founded a nonprofit called Choosing to See. And the reason why I founded that nonprofit is so that way nobody within the blind and visually impaired community would not have an opportunity to do something that they wanted to do because they can't afford it. So if you want to do something and you can't afford it, you need to contact us at choosingtosee.org, because we would love to help more people get out there. And it's true, the more people you add to an adventure, the more it costs. Travel, food, equipment, accommodation, whatever it is. And we can't afford it. Especially when we live with limited incomes. So that was something I could do to help with that part of the access. The other part, as far as finding people to help us, that's going to be, that's community. I don't know how to fix that one.
Yeah, that's a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Well, and that leads me to wonder too, when you do find those folks who are willing to go do something with you, what those folks look like in terms of good support, people, good teammates, to be able to get those people around you.
So you're asking me what makes a good teammate? Yeah. So in my experience, someone who's showing up for you, I get that when you're doing something and it's, but I think for me, if it was just like an activity, for me, I do these world records and so there's also this desire of being part of a world record.
Sure.
And I get that people have to be invested. Like there has to be something that everybody gets out of it. But you really want someone who's showing up that their focus is helping you. We want Shawn to make it, around the Wonderland Trail, successful within her record window and safe and unharmed and not injured. And that's the focus. And they prepare themselves, and there's communication, and it's positive, and you have the ability to communicate when things get hard or frustrating and people are emotional. Like all of this stuff is super important when you're out there doing stuff. I think also, I would love to see the blind and visually impaired community be confident in knowing how to teach someone how to help them. Because I think that's also another important aspect to team. Because if you're not confident in knowing what you need and how you need it and what you want, and everybody else has to guess, then it's not a really great flow. So I think being confident in knowing what you need and how you need it and communicating that is very important when it comes to building your team around you. And I have a really terrible sense of humor. So finding people that can deal with my inappropriateness when we're out there doing really hard stuff is, laughing when it's hard and it sucks and you're like, why am I doing this, is so important to me as just for myself as an individual. So finding those people that can do that, that just makes it fun when it sucks.
Right. Because you need those people, not just at the end, the big moment when the record is set, but at the beginning, when the training starts and all those incremental steps in between.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Do you have any advice that you would give somebody who's maybe just starting out their they're trying to challenge themselves a bit more, um, and maybe they're just nervous that they'll be embarrassed, not being able to do something, or trying to be
Well,
involved with other
yeah,
folks doing that sport that are
yeah,
more, maybe more advanced, and they're just starting out, and they're, trying to get involved.
yeah. I think that, well, the first thing that came to my mind is I would love to ask everybody, if we never failed at anything and we were always successful, what would we learn?
Yeah, not that much, right? Because we always
Not that
we always
much.
learn the most when
We
we
always,
fail.
correct. We always learn the most in our failures. And I think it's also really important to be very clear in your own head as to what your definition of failure is, because trying something and then not being able to do it is not exactly a failure. To me, failure is more of not even trying
Hmm.
to do something. Because I feel like it's all those moments where it just really sucks and you thought you could do a thing and it turned out that maybe you needed to have more training, or you didn't have the right team, or the equipment wasn't right, or whatever it is. That doesn't mean you can't learn something from that, take a step back, regroup, retrain, come up with a new plan, and then do it again,
Hmm.
with the hopes that you'll be successful the next time. um, I think that that mentality of understanding that I'm going to go out and try the thing and I may not be able to do it, but I'm going to appreciate every step of the way, until I'm at the point in which I'm not doing it anymore, whatever that looks like being open and then not worrying. See, I learned a long time ago to not give a crap about what anybody says, because it sucks so much energy from you when you're constantly worried about what will other people think.
Hmm.
Because the reality is people have opinions, but they're not in your shoes. They haven't lived your life. They don't know what it's like. And so they don't, in my opinion, that you don't get an opinion on me. I don't actually care what you think, because you aren't me, and you aren't in my shoes. You haven't lived my life. You haven't had my experiences, so you don't know. So you're giving me an opinion based off of something that you don't know. So I just block that noise out, and yeah, and just focus on the journey, and um, just being clear within yourself about, if I'm going to try this and I'm excited about what I'm going to learn, and it may not work, but I'm going to
You can
try it.
try.
That's the best you can do for anything. And then you may surprise yourself.
Right. And
And
if it doesn't work, but you learn
yeah,
something from it, you may, as you said, be able to redo, like,
yeah.
the,
Or you say, okay, well, that's not for me. I
hmm
need to find something else that, because I really feel like even when you're doing something hard and you're uncomfortable and you're suffering a little bit, you should still love what you're doing.
yeah, I was going to say that it's different to me of saying, oh, well, this didn't work, but is this
Hmm.
something I want to do? I'm going to go back and figure out what didn't work so well and what I could do differently. Then,
Right.
well, I tried this, and you know what? I don't think I really like this. I think maybe I need to try a different sport because this one just isn't that
Which
great.
is amazing.
Which is
Correct.
okay. Like, you don't have to figure
Yes.
out a better way if
No.
you really don't like something. You can do
No.
something different.
And you don't have to love everything. Yeah, and you
Mm-mm.
don't have to love everything, but you'll never know what you love and what you're good at if you don't try.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
trying's the biggest part of that. Yeah, because you have to be brave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just a few quick questions as we're getting to the
Yeah.
end of our time to close out. What would you say is the most underrated gear, your piece of gear that you really love?
Underrated piece of gear that I really love. I don't know why this one stumps me. I don't actually really know. I'm not a fancy gear person. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
minimalist.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
don't, yeah, I'm definitely a minimalist. I think that I know that shoes are a big deal to people, but I think people overthink the shoes. right? You're
Right.
hiking, you need boots. And I'm like, I never use boots. I use trail running shoes. The more comfortable your feet are, the better off you are, is kind of like a very simple way for me to look at that. Um, yeah, I, I don't know. I have a little radio. The other thing I thought of was a little Bluetooth radio. So like when I need like a distraction
Mm-hmm.
for music, I'll just put it in my pocket and play a little
Oh,
music,
yeah.
just to give me a little bit of beat.
Mm-hmm.
And it has really come in handy, in hard moments.
Oh, that's a good tip. Yeah, just that
Yeah.
little
Just
little
it's
boost.
mind
Mm-hmm.
distracting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
What do you think's the best adventure snack?
I love Skittles.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Um, I love Skittles because I can eat them going up or going down.
Mm-hmm.
I can be breathing hard and have Skittles in my mouth, and I love it. Yeah.
That's great. I would not have thought of that one.
Yeah.
Is there a scariest moment or a best lesson?
Ah, scariest moment, best lesson. So, uh, when I did the solo bike ride across the country, it was really my first big, like hard, like riding a single bike as a blind person. And within 2 weeks of that ride, I was going to quit. And because I was like, this is too hard. My brain is too tired. I'm emotionally drained. I'm never going to make it because I am in Idaho and I got to get all the way to Virginia Beach, Virginia. I'm never going to make it.
Mm.
That was my
Mm-hmm.
mentality. And so I had to take it a night and I cried it out. But here's what I learned from that is that this is where I shifted my focus of if I was going to make it to my goal of finishing, I had to learn how to let that go and only think about the day. So I didn't think about the day before and I didn't think about the next day or what that ride was going to be like or the weather. I had to just focus on the day that I was in the moment and only do that day, one day at a time. And I had to be very intentional on finding joy in my
Mm.
day because it was so hard it sucked.
Yeah.
Right. And I was just like so disgruntled. And I was like, I want to laugh and I want to feel like I want to smile. So I had to be intentional in finding those moments to have joy and only think about that day. And I have to tell you, I learned so much because I did that, I was able to finish, but I almost quit because my brain was focused on all the other things.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and it was so overwhelming, I couldn't handle it. And I think that was one of the most important lessons I've learned.
That's great. Well, and now I have to just say, I'm just curious because before we actually started the show and the interview, we were talking, and you said, "Oh, you had a really good story
Oh,
about
biathlon.
biathlon," and so that's stuck. It's still in the back of my head. So I don't know. Do you have
Sure,
time
I
to
would
share
love to.
that?
Yeah, of course, yes, 100%. So when I was training for biathlon, my friend Jesse and I lived in Syracuse, New York at the time. They have a local biathlon club. And so it is men and women from like ages 17 to in their 70s. They will have these local races, and usually the prizes are like homemade pies. You know, it's not money or medals or
Mm-hmm.
anything. And with biathlon, it's you're racing a certain distance, cross country ski, and then you have so many times that you come into the range and you shoot. And you either have penalties where they add time
Right.
to your final time, or you have to do a penalty lap. And depending on how fast you ski that's the
Mm-hmm.
time that gets added in. So we were using this as training. So we were racing in this local race and we got like third place. And all of the men, young and old, were like, wow, if I could shoot a rifle like that, I'd win too. And so as a blind athlete, we use what looks like a 22 rifle, but it's an audio rifle. So it's based off of what you can hear. We put a headset
Oh,
on
okay.
and it's tones. So when you come into the range, you go into the prone and then you have to get set up and then you're listening to these tones to actually be able to hit the target, the bullseye, you know, for it to count as a score, which is so hard to do. And the guys were just like, yeah, you know, we would have won third too if we could have shot that rifle. So Jesse took me to inside, and then he took all the guys. I was like, why don't you take them out to the range and let them check out the rifle? And so they were gone for like a half an hour. And when they came back inside, Jesse's like, hey, Shawn, stand up. And I was like, okay. He's like, put your hand out. I was like, why? He goes, and then all these guys are there and like, we just want to shake your hand. We have no idea. We have no idea how you do that. That is crazy hard. Like none of us could hit the target. Like, we don't know how you do that. So it was like this really interesting opportunity to just give some sighted people that just made this assumption and give them an opportunity to actually see what it was really like for me out there against them. And I just thought that was a really cool experience, because after that, every time we showed up, it was respect.
Right. Yeah. Because an adaptation like that doesn't mean that it's easier. It's just doing a hard thing a different way. Yeah.
I just have to just let the sighted community know that everything I do out there that everybody else is doing, it is way harder for me than you.
Yeah.
How about that? Yeah. I mean, it just is. And that's okay. But it is. It's harder when you can't see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all your stories and your experiences with us. I just would say to our listeners, think about if you're looking at challenging yourself a little bit, like just like one step you can take this month or one thing, or getting involved with a group. I know, Shawn, you also said that you are so happy to be a resource for folks if they're trying to find a group or where they could, do a sport. How could folks reach you and contact you if they had a question about a sport?
Well, they could go to choosingtosee.org, and the emails, I believe the email and the phone number come to me to contact me. I'm on Instagram, Shawn_Cheshire. I think you could just Google my name and stuff comes up. Mm-hmm. But I think Choosing to See is a great way for people to connect with me, because all that information comes to me.
Okay, great. Well, that's just wonderful that you're willing to be a resource to folks that are out there trying to do, especially some of the extreme sports. I think might be a little bit harder to connect with other people doing those sports. So, definitely.
Yeah, we would love to support.
Definitely reach out. And I guess I would also note in all of our discussions, we want people to be safe, and yes, challenge yourself. Know that there are certain risks, but you have to decide your safety level, and don't take appropriate measures so that you're not just being foolish and doing things. But taking some risks can be fun and rewarding. So we hope folks get out there as they see fit. Thank you everybody for listening. Next week we will be talking about youth sports and early development. So I hope you come back for that as we continue on with our series of all things sports. And as always, we hope that the information that Shawn has given you today helps you navigate your life with vision loss.